All right, so welcome to our tutorial today. We're going to do a LoggerPro bar graph tutorial. So here we have started with our conditions, and this is possibly a plant growing condition. So we have no sunlight, partial sunlight, and full sun. And we're going to look at the average growth. And this was what was tabulated from my measurements. And after taking the average, here's a 15, 25, and 43. Note that I also have the uncertainty, and I'm going to make use of that and make sure that's in my graph as well later on. The standard deviation was also calculated, and it can only be calculated if you have at least 5 different trials. There's 5 quick steps to do this. We're first going to open LoggerPro and then search for graph options and then plot appearance and make sure that we've set it up to be a bar graph. So here's a fresh LoggerPro. This is what it would look like if you were opening it up, and we can just right click and then enter graph options. Here we see an appearance, this little box here. We're going to enter bar graph rather than point symbols. We're also going to untick the X error bars because we don't usually have X error bars. Hit done. Doesn't look like it's changed, but it has. Our next step is to making sure that we go into graph options, and then specifically looking at the axes and making sure that whenever we enter our data, it's going to auto scale from 0. But dependent on your actual data, you may or may not use this auto scale function. You might enter in your own axes, major and minor scalings. So for this, the scaling, I'm just going to hit auto scale from 0, auto scale from 0. All right. So now that we have that done, we're going to add our data. For me, I'm just going to copy and paste this data. So copy and paste. And it did all this sort of funky stuff. So maybe I'm just going to choose to enter this data by myself. It should work out if you're using an actual spreadsheet in terms of using possibly a Google Sheet or a Excel sheet. So here we're going to add in a new manual column. This is going to be a standard deviation, an SD. Just quickly relabel my y-axis. My y-axis is going to be average growth in centimeters. And then because I'm on my Windows computer, I have trouble entering the plus minus sign. And I'm still having issues with the plus minus sign. Let's see if I can just copy this. Okay, you should be able to copy the plus minus sign, but we're here for just purposes of demonstration, plus minus. All right, so then my y-axis is labeled now. My x-axis is going to be conditions. And then you'll see that my x and y-axis have been relabeled for me. What I'll also do now is type in the conditions. So this is no sun. This was partially shaded. Then we also have the last one, which is full sun. Then just to look back at my values, so 15, 25, 43, and then 1, 2, 5. So 1, 2, 5, 15, 25, 45, 43. Great, so I already have a bar graph. And that auto scale, you just saw it right there. If you rotate back, you'll see that what LoggerPro did was just auto scale it so that I can still see everything. The next step that we have on here is to rename the columns. So I add the data and rename the columns. Dependent on what you're using to import your data, you might have to do it manually like I did, or you would be able to just copy and paste your data from Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet. So the last thing is that we're going to right click on graph and then go into column options. And then specifically, we're going to set up our error bars now and then use column and then select the standard deviation column. So right click, column options. And for us, we're going to look at the data set specifically for average growth, which is our y-axis. So we're going to go to options, and then we're going to go error bar calculations. And what we want is a fixed value, and we're going to use the column. So now that I've relabeled everything, it's a standard deviation column. I want my error bars to show this column right here. So I'm going to click done, and you'll see that it moved into a lighter red color, and I'm finding it kind of hard to see that last part. So what we'll do is we'll drag that down a little bit. And then if ever you would like to change up some colors, you can play around with the manual column options. My favorite color is orange, so I'm going to set it up as orange. And for some reason it's played around with my bars again because of that auto scaling feature. So there's that. And then now I've set it up like I would like to. Make sure that you can also readjust the size of your graph before you take a screenshot and then put it into your biology IA. And that's it.